Okay, hi everyone, welcome. This is the first little 15-minute session that we're doing here this morning. And my name's Luke, I work at the SACE board. I'm going to talk to you about basically the structure of research projects. So for many of you, you're just starting research project. You may not have a good idea about what the subject is about. Hopefully in about 10 minutes, I'm going to try to explain the structure of the course. So give you a broad idea about what you need to do and how you're going to go about getting marks for this as well. Okay, so welcome. Okay, so when we're talking about research project, the Year 12 subject, we're not talking about, scientific research or Big Bang Theory research. We're not talking about white coats and clipboards. Essentially, research is we want you to find out something that you have a strong personal interest with. Okay, so research for this subject is basically find out some information about something that you want to find information out about. Okay, it can be basically anything that you like. This subject is entirely up to you. Okay, it doesn't have to be academic research. You can be making something, or if you have an interest in a particular hobby or what you want to do for a further career or something like that. It's about finding out information about something that you are interested in. I've said that a few times. Okay, that's what you'll get from all these kids out here, is that they did something that they loved, that they had a passion for, and that's what the subject is all about. It's not about, having academic research. It's about finding out something that is of personal interest to you. So, it could be practical, it could be technical. There's many different approaches to research. We're having a series of little workshops happening this morning, so feel free to come back, and there'll be another session in about half an hour time where someone will talk about, analysing sources and things like that. Now with the research project, there are 4 phases to it. There are 4 areas. There's a planning phase where you will decide on what you want to do, what topic you want to do, and then you have to refine that topic down to a researchable question. Once you've worked out what you want to do for your research, after that you go out and you find your information. So you'll do interviews, you'll do surveys, you'll go on the internet, you might do some action research yourself, some practical research. You'll find information from various sources, if you like. After that, once you've found your research, which should take you about a term or so, about 10 weeks of researching, you need to sort of synthesise all of your information to answer your question. Okay, so if your question is like, how do I train a puppy to do something, then you'll spend 10 weeks or so investigating that, looking at what the experts do. You might have a puppy yourself, you might have a look on the internet, you might survey people, you might interview people. But at the end of the day, you've got to produce what's called a research outcome, where this is the answer to your question. How you decide to present that research outcome is entirely up to you. So some people might write a bit of a report, other people might do a PowerPoint, other people might make a short movie. Okay, imagine like a little YouTube video about how to train a puppy. Okay, so it could be that sort of thing. Okay, how you decide to do your research outcome is up to you. Lastly, when you finish, you need to do what's called an evaluation or a review of your learning. So with research project, there are 2 different kinds of research project. There's research project A, okay, and there's research project B. There's no real difference between them except for this last part 4 here. So if you're doing research project A, it's a review. And in that assessment, what you are doing is you are telling the reader the key things that you learned from doing research project. So I learned how to do this, or I learnt this piece of information, and this piece of information was more important than that. Research project B is an evaluation, which is a bit more difficult. Okay, that's where you've got to sort of unpack how you went about doing your research and how you solved problems along the way and all that sort of stuff. For now, here, you should focus on the planning and the development and the research outcome. Think about what you want to do for a term or a semester, and then think about how you're going to present your findings at the end. It's a bit of a complex diagram here, but this is a bit of a flow chart about what you need to do. So you start off here in planning the research where you identify a broad area of interest. So think about something that you love, something that you have a passion for, something that is a hobby, something that maybe if you want to, when you leave school, what you want to do, something of personal interest to you. If you choose something pretty, lame, right, pretty basic, you'll hate it. Okay, you're going to be spending a significant amount of time here on this research project. Do something that you enjoy doing. Okay, because otherwise you just won't do it. It'll be too hard and you'll give up. You can't do that. You've got to pass this to get your SACE. Do something you love. Once you've worked out your broad area of interest, you've got to refine it down to a researchable question. Now, a simple question, like a what question or a how question or something like that, a very simple question has got a simple answer, and a simple answer is a description, and they're generally in the C level. The A level all goes back to the type of question that you develop. So if you develop a question that encourages people to look at different points of view on it, to talk about how effective or to what extent is this better than that, something is a bit debatable, then you're able to collect a heap of info, explore the different perspectives, and have a bit more of a complex sort of answer. You need to talk about the capabilities in this, and you also need to talk about, your literacy and all that sort of stuff as well. So, once you've worked out what you're going to do, you've got to work out how you're going to find your information. So that's a bit of a decision about, do I do surveys, do I do interviews, things like that. And then you go off and you do your research. The research outcome, the purple up here, that's your answer to your question. And like I said before, you can present that however you choose. So there are limits here. So if you do make a movie, for example, it's a 12-minute maximum. If you are going to write a report or something like that, it's a 2,000-word major piece of work. If you're doing RPA, it's a 1,500 piece of work. But really, the focus of the research outcome is not everything you found out. It is a way of convincing the reader that this is the answer to the question. So in a way, it's almost like an argumentative sort of piece, where you're convincing someone that this is the best way to train a puppy. Not just the history of puppy training in Australia, or how you felt about how you trained your puppy. You need to focus on answering the question. Lastly, down the bottom here, you've got an evaluation or a review, and worry about that a little bit later on when it's a bit closer to that stage. So we have a look at the assessment. Now, you'll do 3 pieces of work for a research project. One's called a folio. Now, this is worth 30%, and this is the collection of all of your information. So once you've found your information, you've got to analyse that, you've got to think about how your capabilities have grown, you've got to think about what skills you've developed. There'll be evidence of here about how you've done your planning and things like that. That big folder of work, which you'll see with the kids around here, that's worth a third, or almost a third. It's worth 30%. The research outcome, as you know, is the answer to the question. It can be presented how you like. This is worth 40%. So for RPB, it's a 2,000 word or 12 minute. For RPA, it's 1,500 words or 10 minutes. This is worth 40%. And if you're doing a review, like I said before, this is basically a recount. It's basically a tell us about the things that you've learned, things how you solve problems and things like that. And for RPB, it's more of an evaluation, which is a bit more difficult, but there's certainly a very structured way of going about it, which of course your teachers will help to support you. Okay, so I survived, so thank you for that. You've been a great audience. If you have any questions, feel free to hang around. Happy to answer any questions. Please go and have a look, get your stamps, have a look at the 360 Q&A booth. Have fun and good luck with your research project.